Hello everyone, I am Prasanna Trajan and here we are going to see the part 2 video of our the database driven development series, which is only going to have two videos, this and the previous one. Okay, so in the last video what we did was we took a problem and then let us to design that app around that. We, instead of starting Rails code, we just started designing the database right away in PostgreSQL and even testing it right from SQL itself. So you, in that last video, you can see that it is very fast and yeah, it was great. Now I would do the same thing in Rails. So this is a Rails application, the same place where we have the SQL file, and the only model that we are concerned about is staff. I named it staff because unfortunately the folder itself was called as employee and I can't, the app itself was called as employee and then I can't create a model called employee. It seems it will clash with the Rails application name constant. So I had to create it as staff. So while I developed this thing, I did kind of like test driven development. Yeah, test staff, something that. Okay, so what I did was I need some sample data, right? So we had this fixtures. So Rails gave this thing, and so first I created the same set of data that we saw. That is it. We created here. So we created like one boss and two manager and four leads and five engineers, right? The same data set I had to create here. So I did it through the Rails default fixtures. I didn't go for factory bot. I got the name right. So, um, so you create each object employee. What is that staff object? You give it ID. You don't have to give ID, but actually in this case, I need it for foreign key reference in this reporter ID, right? So for that, uh, you need to give this thing. This is a special type of YAML called as OMAP YAML. So you can go here in the given link to find what it is. So if you make it as a OMAP YAML, you can mention IDs here, hardcode them. Okay, so and then how do you refer, like in fixtures you do create or build, right? So how do you refer to fixtures in your test cases? So like this, all you have to do is just give the plural name of the table name staffs, and then give the object's name, like boss, engineer 5 underscore Joe, here boss underscore Joe, boss underscore Joe, that's it. And then all it is just a it's as if it is the same object that you would get after persisting into database and then retrieving it. It is going to be an active record object, and then all associations in it will work like reporter, reportee, whatever that you want to call. Okay, so so that's what. So the first test case that I wrote was this thing. Just after I populated this thing, this fixtures, I just want to make sure if it is working properly, and then just did staff.count and I got 12. So let's see if we can run it. Yeah. Yes. What is the test case? 4. Line number 4. Yes, it is running it. So it ran this thing. And I have here the test log here tailed, so that we can see what queries are running and see how efficient Rails is trying to run, so that we can complain about it. So yeah, when you run this thing, what query it's supposed to run. So you can see that first it every single time it loads the fixtures into the database, test database, and then what is this alter staff trigger? I don't know what it is. So what it does is select count staff. Yes, obviously you need a count staff here. That is what we do, staff.count. So it runs a count query, fine. You can clear it and then you can go to the next thing. So the next thing the next thing we did here in the SQL was we bothered about like given an employee, we found his reporter and then reportees. So how are we going to do that? So the kind of interface that I want is like object name dot reporter. That is what I want. So and then I have two test cases here for that. One is the general thing like engineer 5's reporter, and then boss's reporter. Boss's reporter will be nil, right? So we need to check that as well. So yeah. So what we do here? So boss's reporter ID is nil here. If you can see here, reporter ID actually. Now this object should work accordingly. So how to do that, how many lines of code is required to do that in Rails for reporter. In SQL, what we did, the query that we ran was um, this guy. So it is a single query, but internally it will run it as two queries. But they just bother about like bitching about Rails. So I'm just going to count it as one. So the reporter, here it is actually. So belongs to reporter, and a staff belongs to a reporter, and then it is the same class we have. It is the same staff class, and then the foreign key is report. Actually, while trying to design this, I thought of designing it like this thing because it makes sense as has one, right? Like each staff has one reporter, right? And then I couldn't get it to work. I tried changing all sorts of this thing. Like honestly, I don't know this thing. I don't map these things very well properly. Since in this case it is just one table, I just do a combination, permutation combination. So foreign key, primary key here, and then ID, reporter ID. Whatever I did, it didn't work. That is mainly because in a has-one relationship, the foreign key is not going to be in the table. Assume not this tab is a weird case where we are referring to the same table. Let us say we have like employee has one chair, employee and chair table. So the foreign key goes to not the employee table. It goes to the chair table. It says belongs to employee ID, right? So then it is much more better to say a chair belongs to employee rather than a chair has one. I mean, employee has one chair. So it is going to save you a lot of problems. If you go to Google and say like Rails has one, don't use. Some guy had bitched about that. He was trying to make some argument. I followed through some of it and kind of like agreed with him. You can also go and watch that. I have no time to show that to you right now. Sorry, this is the first case I'm going to be rude. First screencast. Okay, so this doesn't work. So all you need is just this line. Forget about these things, don't impact. So for these two test cases to pass, you just need belongs to reporter, this thing. That's it. That's it, baby. So now you can run the test case line numbered 8 and 12 and they will both pass. Let's see. 8. That's how you run two test cases, right? Yes, that is how you run two test cases. 8 colon 12 colon any number of test case numbers you can give it to the file. I mean to the command Rails test this thing, and then colon the test case that you want to run, and then again colon. So likewise you can run any number of specific test cases instead of running the whole file. You want me to run the whole file and see? Here it is. You run the whole test cases. Holy shit. Why is it failing? Okay, yeah, I know why it fails. Let's come there first. I mean later on. So I'm not bothered about that right now. I'll just show you the two test cases again. So 8 and 12, it is passing, right? And we can see that yeah, this is the fun part. See the queries that it is running. For let's just run 8. Oh, shit. Let us run it now. I'm just running that one test case, and you can see that it is running two queries. So am I doing two lookups? No, I'm just doing staff. I mean engineer file Joe dot reporter. That's it, right? Why does it run two queries? Because it needs the two queries to get that thing. Just as our SQL query here needs the two queries. But with PostgreSQL's common table expression, we can combine them into a single query. So now, let us say that you really want to save this network database cost. So let's say that the your boss is like you're getting so much traffic, and then performance is very crucial to you, and then like they're going to pay you a lot of money to improve performance. And this is one of the queries that is run hit millions of times per day in your server. Then how would you try to shave off some time? All you could do is I'm just looking to see if it is cached. Yeah, it is not even cached. You can see that both the time it looks like the same query, but you can see that the ID is different. So it first looks up the employee's ID and then it looks up his manager ID because you need to get the reporter's details as well, right? So it runs two separate queries. It goes to the database two times. Um, yeah, that's the proof. So, so if you are trying to save the network cost, if you're trying to increase the speed of this application, I would suggest you don't use the Rails way of doing this thing. I would suggest you do something like this. Def reporter, and then to do this thing. This is called as find by SQL, right? Find by SQL. What is that query? Something is wrong. I think I know what it is. Oh, we should wait. The table that we have is called as staffs. We should. This actually there's no employee here. So we need to replace employee by staff. No, why? Okay, so we have changed it. Let us see now. It still fails because name. Actually, we are getting it. No, we're not getting it. We're getting something else. That is probably because I'm massaging it here um, for display purposes. Like for example, reporter, reportee. I shouldn't be needing all of that. I'll just do star, na? Dot stop. That's it. This is what I'm going to need. I know this fucked up. Okay. I don't know how to do this thing. There's a way to run this thing. Uh, in the worst case, you could just get that PG database connection query and just execute the raw SQL. But then we're fucked, I guess, while trying to get the result set. So yeah, I didn't try this thing actually, but I found out in internet that you can use ARL, AREL, the main engine that runs this active record. So you can use that to construct this common table expression. It seems so. There's a facility to that, but it was kind of like not intuitive for me when I saw that. But after you combine all of those things, and then when you form that ARL query, and then when you try to call .2SQL, it would be the actual the uh, CTE that you see here. It seems. So there were like a couple of blog posts explaining that in detail, but unfortunately they didn't have any discuss comments, so their credibility is to be questioned. So I am not going to follow with this thought exercise, mainly because I haven't explored this before this before screen capturing this thing. If I had done that, I would have something cool to say to you here right now. Now I look like a bummer. Okay, so this is enough, and this is another simple way of doing it. Start with perf. Is that so? I don't think so. Ah, yes. Either this or you can do this simple method. So either of them will get you the reporter query. But still, that too runs two queries. It looks like single query, but then to get the reporter ID of the main record, you need to make the database call first. There is two queries on that actually. Okay. Now let's go to the next test case. Oh boy, let's go to reportees. So you can see that lead one Joe has three reportees. This guy, this guy, this guy. So if you just call dot reportees, it's going to be an array, and we just it's going to be active record relation, and then I plug the name out of them, and then you get their name, and then you can see that all engineers do have reportees as empty arrays. So we are just asserting that they are empty for all engineers. So let us see how to implement that. First, let us make sure the test cases pass. So it is just 16 and 20, right? The test cases 16 and 20. Let's see how we can run that. 16 and then 20. Yep, passing. Look, look at the fucking number of queries. We just run, let's run one and see. Okay, we have two queries. This guy and then this guy. Alright, so then how many queries did we achieve it in the SQL? Report is, again, just one query, bitches. Okay, sorry for that word. Please don't crucify me. Bitches. What's wrong with saying that? When it rains like a dog, I usually say that it rained like a bitch. So I'm actually comparing the rain with a bitch. Which I compare intuitively to a dog. So a dog is a bitch. So that is what I meant when I say it rain like a bitch. Okay? Thanks for that detour person now. Now let us focus before our MacBook bursts into Phoenix. Um, Phoenix comes back alive. Your Mac is never going to. Okay, so the test cases pass. We have two queries. How do we do that? What is that? Reportees. And reportees also is just one line. So it's just so a staff has many reportees. And then you just this is frankly I don't know how to get this thing correct. So I just changed this to thing combination foreign key to primary and ID to report ID, and then one of the combinations worked. And that is how you get. And to prove that I didn't fuck things up accidentally. That is why I have two test cases here. I have reported test case here as well, and then I have reported test case here as well. That is how I offset my incompetency. Um, and then what we have? Superiors. This is fun. Superior and subordinates, right? So this is where I was. So in the SQL, how did we solve this thing? We solved it by recursive CTE, the advanced topic that we saw. So you did this thing, you iterated, you collected, you built a result set as you went through the loop, right? And then, so when you come here, that is what you're going to do here. So uh, first let us look at this method. It is the same thing, superiors, but I find this thing very easy to understand, even though it is a little bit longer than this method. It is very easy. So how do you find superiors? You take the current reporter and then uh, put him in this array, and then after this after you put it in this array, you find his reporter, current reporter dot reporter, and then you loop it until you find no current report. That means you have reached the boss, right? At that time you break. So this is just an infinite loop do with a break condition. So break if current report is nil. So you're taking your current, I mean, this guy whose reporter superior I'll be trying to find. This guy, let us say inch5 Joe. So when you try to call inch5 Joe dot superior, so this current superior will be his immediate reporter, and then his reporter's reporter, and then you go all the way, and then all the while you just accumulate the current reporter in this result array, and then finally once the loop breaks, you return the result. So that is how you get this thing. Dot superior dot, after you get their names, you get all of these. So these are all superiors of this guy, engineer Joe, starting from lead, manager, and then all the way up to boss. Uh, but then there is a nice succinct way using recursion and attrition to do this thing. So it is the same method. What you do is you take the reporter of this guy Joe, put it in an array, and then compact. We will need compact later on, because once you reach the boss, it is going to be nil. So you can't call these like dot superiors on a nil element. So it's going to throw up an error. So because of that, you need to call compact, and then you just map over it. And when you map over it, it is like map. Normally, it corresponds to one-to-one mapping, right? So if you have 10 elements in an array and you map over it and pass some function, it's going to return 10 elements. So here in this case, we are just building up. I think something like each with object, or something else like reduce, inject. That would be a better use case for this thing, but forget it. This did the job for me. So what I do is I just map over it, and then you take this guy's superiors. So that's that method coming from, yeah, it's a recursive call page. So reporter superiors, you call this guy, but then you take this current reporter as well and add it, and then you flatten it. If I look too deep into this thing, I would start wondering about my programming competencies. I can't explain it clearly why this thing works, but honest to God, I wrote this code and it fucking works. And the flatten is simply because if you get a lot of these things, you get nested arrays, so you just have to flatten it, please. You can see that there's a typo here. That is intentional actually, because at the outer level, the reporter is actually a method on the instance method on the stack. Uh, Even though there won't be a clash within the blob, it is scoped. I understand Ruby, okay, uh, but still, I don't want to put too much doubts on the code reviewer. Did this guy mess up? No, I didn't mess up, idiot. I just know. I just want you to not be confused. Okay, that's probably a bad name. I understand that. Okay, you do this thing, and then you can get this and a superior. That's it. You have two superior inputs. Comment one. Yeah, same with subordinates. You just take them, recursively call subordinates, and then call reportees. And that is why the reporter is a single. It returns a single object. Reportees returns an array, so you don't need to call compact on that. Or in it, that is why here it's correct. Okay, reportee. Yeah, reportee is single here. That is why you need to array file it. Array file. It's called as this is the word. Array file. Okay, that is what we do when we put a single element in an array. Okay, that's how you do it. And then comes the last use case. That is the top 10 salaries, right? Here, top 10. So that is not the last. Top 10 salaries, and then you get their aggregate. So in this case, the main thing that caused the problem, kind of small difficulty, was the aggregate, right? Um, so you think it would translate the same thing here, but in this case, Ruby is better at calculating sum than relying upon the sequence aggregate, because once you query the top 10 records sorted by salary, you don't need to fire another query, aggregate query to get this thing, because you already have the objects in memory. You can just use Ruby's enumerables, Ruby's sum method to go over their salary and calculate the sum. That is as easy as that. So, but still, this is the query that you have to do. I mean, we saw here, right? Um, we saw here that you need to do a subquery to get the sum of salary of the top 10 sorted by salary. In order to get the same value, the top 10 salary of these guys, you have to actually do the same. You have to order it by descending, limit it, and then you have to pluck it, and then pluck the salary field, and then call sum on it. So this won't trigger a aggregate function query. This is just Ruby's enumerable sum method. So similarly, that is what I do it. I just take it, I split it into multiple lines. I just take two array top 10 and then get its top 10s, mapping it and then finding its salary, and then you can find the percentage like this, same thing, and then you can do whatever the fuck you want to do with this thing. So that is it. So if you run this test case, it will fail, because this returns an array of percentages for the top 10 guys, but then I'm comparing it with 350, that is the total salary, because I don't give a fuck. Okay, so these are the values that you see: 34.285, same thing that you're getting at 11.4, you're getting the same values here. So it works same. uh, if you delete all of these comments, you can see that probably the Ruby code is much less. See, in these two lines you got the great functionalities for reportees and reporter, and then this succinct method you got superior, similar to subordinates, and then you don't even have to use the aggregate function to calculate the sum. You can use beautiful Ruby, but then the, the conciseness comes at a cost of these multiple Ruby queries. I mean, multiple SQL queries, the network calls that are required to run these things. So this will all impact your application a lot. So when you're designing, make sure that you're very stringent on doing the API, I mean the database queries. So be concise. Okay, that's it for today. Have a great day.